Welcome back. You're watching our live and continuing coverage of India's battle against the coronavirus. We've got 28 minutes and 24 seconds to go before Prime Minister Narendra Modi addresses the nation this morning. We're joined by our finest team of reporters, anchors and editors, and also by guests who are helping us understand where India is in the battle against the coronavirus and what we should be doing next. What I want to do right now is spend some time interpreting the messages coming out from the Prime Minister over the past 21 days. He's spoken to the nation twice over. He's had mini addresses, recorded addresses of the kind that we'll see this morning, and there has been a certain continuity, but there have been some important changes as well in what the Prime Minister is being saying. He started out with the message Jaan Hai, Toh Jahaan Hai, which means if you're alive, only then does the world really exist. When he spoke to chief ministers earlier this week, he changed his message to Jaan Bhi, Jahaan Bhi, and that's something we will see play out over the next 1 hour, where the Prime Minister focuses on saving lives and yet at the same time trying to ensure that livelihoods can be restored to some extent at least. And some of the choices he'll make are really amongst the toughest decisions he's taken. Let's just delve into what the Prime Minister has been saying and how his message has evolved over the past 3 weeks.
Since his first address to the nation on 19th March, Prime Minister Modi's messaging on combating coronavirus seems to have been constantly evolving. In his first speech addressing coronavirus, the Prime Minister made an attempt to curb the atmosphere of fear and made a call to action to every citizen of India.
जब प्रथम विश्व युद्ध हुआ था, जब द्वितीय विश्व युद्ध हुआ था, तब भी इतने देश युद्ध से प्रभावित नहीं हुए थे जितने आज कोरोना की इस बीमारी से हैं। पिछले 2 महीने से हम निरंतर दुनिया भर से आ रहे कोरोना वायरस से जुड़ी चिंताजनक खबरें देख रहे हैं, सुन रहे हैं।
It was also when the Prime Minister prepared India for a lockdown by declaring a voluntary Janta curfew.
22 मार्च रविवार को सुबह 7 बजे से रात 9 बजे तक सभी देशवासियों को जनता कर्फ्यू का पालन करना है।
India Today's word cloud analysis of Prime Minister's first speech showed that the focus was on people and the pandemic. The next address was 5 days later on 24th March, where the Prime Minister announced a nationwide 21-day lockdown.
पूरे देश में आज रात 12 बजे से संपूर्ण देश में संपूर्ण लॉकडाउन होने जा रहा है।
This time, the focus was clearly on combating coronavirus. The message was Jaan Hai, Toh Jahaan Hai, or if there's a life, there's a world.
अगर ये 21 दिन नहीं संभले तो देश और आपका परिवार 21 साल पीछे चला जाएगा। आपको याद रखना है, जान है तो जहान है।
9 days after announcing the lockdown, the Prime Minister put out a video message. This time the focus was on boosting the morale of the nation and making the citizens realize their collective strength in these testing times.
चारों तरफ जब हर व्यक्ति एक-एक दिया जलाएगा, तब प्रकाश की उस महाशक्ति का एहसास होगा जिसमें एक ही मकसद से हम सब लड़ रहे हैं, ये उजागर होगा।
The call was to light a candle or a diya at 9 p.m. for 9 minutes, but the message of fighting the coronavirus by following the rules of distancing was re-emphasized.
देशव्यापी लॉकडाउन ने आपके घर के दरवाजे पर एक लक्ष्मण रेखा खींच दी है। आपको ये याद रखना है कि घर से बाहर पड़ने वाला आपका सिर्फ एक कदम कोरोना जैसी गंभीर महामारी को आपके घर में ले आ सकता है।
18 days after imposing the strictest lockdown in the world, the Prime Minister met state chief ministers to discuss the exit plan. While the demand for lockdown extension was unanimous, this time the Prime Minister gave a new mantra. From Jaan Hai, Jahaan Hai, it was now Jaan Bhi, Jahaan Bhi, implying that the government's strategy would focus on saving lives and livelihoods. All eyes now are on Tuesday, when at 10 a.m. the Prime Minister is expected to lay out the roadmap for Lockdown 2.0. Bureau Report, India Today.
There have been different ways in which world leaders have approached this crisis. President Bolsonaro in Brazil has said, let's take it in the chest. I'm an athlete, we can deal with it, our country is young, and we'll fight out the virus. While Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said, this is the biggest battle we've dealt with since the Second World War, caution is the way to go. Rajdeep, we don't know how this will end, but what we're about to see is truly one of the most important things the Prime Minister would have ever done, because he could have gone down now after Russia initially said they'll battle it out, Vladimir Putin and Russia talking about a grave crisis which they now need to respond to. India, therefore, and I want to show you data compiled by researchers at Oxford University, India has the most stringent lockdown in the world, and therefore the Prime Minister is really, keeping public health and infrastructure in mind, gone the safe distance and shunned any form of bravado.
Absolutely. I think there are two ways to look at the Oxford data, for example. India has had one of the severest, if not as per the data, the severest lockdown in the world. And that's 1.3 billion people, much larger than any other country which has had such a nationwide lockdown. On the other hand, that same data will also show you, Rahul, that India has had the weakest fiscal stimulus. And I think that's the challenge now that comes before the Prime Minister. You've had a severe lockdown. People have embraced, in a way, pain. They've been motivated by what the Prime Minister said in his first two speeches for a Janta curfew and then a nationwide lockdown. Now, Lockdown 2.0 has to include that element of ensuring that people get a sense of hope that their jobs will be protected, their livelihoods will be protected. I think that's the shift that the Prime Minister will have to make in his speech, in his communication, and that's the challenge for him. It's easier in that sense. I wouldn't say it's easier. It was a huge challenge for him to get so many people to embrace the lockdown, and it is to the credit of the Prime Minister's communication abilities that he's succeeded in that regard. It's to the credit also of chief ministers, many of whom have also enforced the lockdown. But now, those chief ministers need the revenues to try and ensure, let's say in harvesting season in Punjab, that the farmers have a sense of well-being, or indeed in a state like Maharashtra where small and micro industries are bleeding, that this is not just about pain, but this is also about a promise that the future will be better. And I think that is the challenge. The lives and livelihoods coexistence is a battle not just being fought in India but across the world. The longer the lockdown stretches, the more the focus on the health emergency, the worse the economic emergency becomes. And India will have to find a way to find the revenues to ensure that there is some kind of financial package, fiscal stimulus, and indeed cash transfers to those who are hurting the most. The Prime Minister may not announce all of this, we don't expect that, but at least there must be that fierce commitment that it will happen almost instantaneously once the Prime Minister has spoken.
Rajdeep, speaking about finding revenues, which is very difficult to do at a time when industrial production is down, services are largely disrupted, GST collections rock bottom, and therefore Devendra Sharma, it's a real challenge. Finding, doing what the United States did or Germany is doing is easy. Trying to find the money in India is much tougher. This is harvest season. From the perspective of the farming sector in rural India, what do you think can be done given the limitations we have to try and alleviate this crisis?
Well, Rahul, let's be very clear that from tomorrow onwards, April 15, we're going to have a mammoth operation across many states, Punjab, followed by Haryana from April 20th, and then of course Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan. This will be the harvest season, as you know, and we are going to start procurement from April 15th. Punjab expects roughly about 135 lakh tons of wheat to flow into the mandis in the next 1.5 months, and Haryana is expecting about 90 lakh tons to flow into the mandi, which is a huge operation. And this is also an opportunity to revive the economy. Let's be very clear that rural sector today provides an opportunity. It's a resilient, it is a resilient sector. It can provide the kind of economic boost to the kind of depression that we see all around. And here is an opportunity that we expect the Prime Minister to at least convey that the nation is standing with the farmers at this crucial juncture, and everything will be in order. I think a lot of preparation has gone into the procurement operations. Look at the way the Punjab and Haryana governments have segregated the farming population, so that there's not much of a crowd in one particular mandi. So they have almost doubled in Punjab, and in Haryana we see at least 4 times the mandi number have gone up, because they want to ensure that the footfall in the mandi is low. So which means that you have to ensure that maintaining the physical distances, you are able to continue with the operations. And let's not forget, in the next 1.5 months or 1 month maximum of it, we will see at least 1 lakh crore flowing into the rural economy, and by way of procurement operations, whether it is wheat and rice or whether it is.
But one of the big challenges, from what I understand, Devendra Sharma, is to ensure that all the harvesting doesn't happen at the same time. If everybody harvests their crops and lands up at the mandi at the same time, it's going to be difficult to manage. Given all the other restrictions, a lot of food grains could go waste. And secondly, social distancing will be difficult. Now, that's a very complicated operation. How do you get the message across rural India that you need to stagger the harvesting? How have states tried to approach this dilemma? To what extent do you think they're succeeding?
See, I was expecting the government to respond to Punjab and Haryana's call, because both Punjab and Haryana have written to the central government that they want to stagger wheat harvesting and procurement operations, which means, let's say Haryana's offer was that if you allow till May 6th, pay farmers a premium or a kind of a bonus, 50 rupees per quintal extra, so that they can keep the stock at their home, which it will be very difficult, of course. But that was a kind of incentive, and Punjab wanted 100 rupees and 200 rupees if you stagger it over a period. Centre hasn't responded. But the point is that the states are aware of it, and because the availability of labor is less, I think in any case this would stagger the harvesting operations, because there's a lot of constraint as far as availability of labor is concerned, and that's a very significant, I would say, a little setback that the farmers are going to encounter all across the country.
Rajiv Dubey,
as far as the operations are concerned,
yes,
the harvesting begins in central India first. So Madhya Pradesh is done. Then, of course, Rajasthan, Maharashtra, and so on, and then it moves ultimately to Punjab. So now is the peak season for harvesting in Punjab, and it has started. But I think we need a kind of a message from the farmer that the nation is standing with the farmer at this juncture, which will be a morale booster for a sector which is facing lots and lots of problems, because in case of perishable, they have already suffered a huge loss.
So we've dealt with agriculture to some extent. I want to go across to Rajiv Dubey, who edits Business Today, and focus on how industry can be revived from that COVID-induced coma that it's in. It's a sudden coma. Industry looking for a ventilator, a financial ventilator if possible, and every sector of industry is looking for a ventilator. How do you think the government could potentially prioritize? Because every sector where we're speaking to top executives, they're all hoping for some kind of bailout. The government simply doesn't have that kind of money. How do you ensure that you keep in mind the lives versus livelihoods dilemma, and yet ensure that some critical sectors can be pumped back to life?
Yeah, so Rahul, the biggest issue as far as the industry is concerned, as I was saying, is the demand. The fact that the demand has crashed so dramatically, and when the lockdown opens, when the demand will the demand pick up as quickly as possible? So it's very important that sectors, there's been this clamor that the resources from different ministries should be diverted towards handling corona crisis. No. Government will have to find new resources to handle corona, which is why it's important that we find ways in which we can, create fresh resources take more loans so that we can create that kind of a fund to be able to handle corona and to give that stimulus. It will not be possible to divert, let's say, an infrastructure resource into it, because that's one of the sectors of the economy. Public expenditure is the only thing that is keeping our economy going at whatever rate that we are going at, 4.5%. It's going to dramatically crash, but at this point in time, that's the GDP growth rate we have. So it's very important that the public expenditure of the government continues and is in fact accelerated. And the government will have to find resources to be able to fund the stimulus that it will give. The stimulus will have to come in the form of new resources that the government raises, whether it creates debt, whether it raises more debt, or whether it is in the form of new, the RBI printing money and giving money to the, and government giving bonds to the RBI, or any other form in which it will be able to add more money into the economy. Using the current money in the economy is not possible. It's not possible to fight corona. The enormity of the money required is almost 10 lakh crore. 5% of the stimulus of the GDP is what we require for in terms of stimulus. So it's important that public expenditure continues, is accelerated. The government increases ways in which it will be able to fund this stimulus, and the quicker that that the industry can open up, and the quicker the lockdown can be opened up as safely as possible, is what the industry wants right now. Because
so the Prime Minister has the knack of springing surprises, but what I want to do right now is take you through the inputs that were sent by our national political team after speaking to sources cutting across ministries, trying to understand the thinking within the government. Remember, these are inputs shared with the Prime Minister's office. What he will announce in about 11 minutes from now, we don't know. But what we can do is take you through some of the inputs that have gone in, and then you can compare and contrast this with what the Prime Minister actually says when he speaks to the people of this country in about 11 minutes and 22 seconds from now.
It's the all-important address that will decide India's future course on lockdown and the Covid-19 fight. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will address the nation today, the last day of the 21-day nationwide lockdown. The Prime Minister's office tweeted about Modi's fourth video message the entire country is waiting for. India today has learnt that the centre is planning partial relief for agriculture and industry sectors. The government is all set to work with large industries for staggered resumption of work. India today has accessed exclusive details of the Confederation of Indian Industry proposal to the group of ministers led by Rajnath Singh. The industry body has proposed calibrated and safe exit from the lockdown subject to geographical spread of COVID-19. The industry group has proposed classifying India as red, amber and green based on the incidence of COVID cases. Areas with no cases may be marked green, allowing unfettered travel. Restrictions may be in place for amber zones, while full lockdown will continue in the red zones. The proposal says that all facilities that will reopen must have requisite health, sanitation and screening systems in place to protect workers. According to the CII proposal, manufacturing, e-commerce and construction may be permitted to open up partially, perhaps 25% to begin with in the first phase. In phase 2, all other sectors could be restarted with 25% resumption initially, which may be scaled up to 50% and eventually 100%. The CII has also proposed a two-fold economic package and fiscal expansion directed towards the bottom of the pyramid and enhanced credit to industry through banks. The centre is also considering industry proposal to bring back the migratory workforce, which abandoned the urban area soon after the lockdown was announced.
Are on the much-awaited speech by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Whether there will be any sort of relaxation in certain key sectors is something to watch out for. But as India enters a decisive phase 2 of lockdown, there is much more to wait and watch for. With camera person Kirpal, this is Kamaljeet Sandhu in Delhi for India Today.
while the Prime Minister is speaking, we'll be doing a live word cloud analysis. And to give you some context of what's happened so far, I want to take you through the two big speeches the Prime Minister has made during this lockdown to look at what he's been emphasizing, and then we'll try and see what's changed and what's not. So here is the first lockdown address that the Prime Minister made to the nation. There it is on your screen right now. So the Prime Minister spoke a lot about people. He spoke naturally about coronavirus 15 times. He spoke of citizens 13 times. He spoke of the pandemic 14 times. He spoke of the need to maintain time 12 times. He spoke of curfew 11 times over. This is the address on the 19th of March. Let's now come to the next address which the Prime Minister made, and then you can get some sense of what stays same, what changes. Here he's speaking of Corona 22 times, stay home 11 times. So that's interesting. The message comes out, stay home. He then starts speaking about infection 11 times. He starts speaking about contamination 9 times over. He's talking about spending time with family 11 times over. So those are the key thrust areas on the 24th of March. Let's now move to the next address. This is on the 29th of March. Here, he's speaking about the need to stay home 23 times. He's speaking about family 24 times. He's speaking about people 30 times. Hospital jumps into that list, speaking about work being done in hospitals 14 times. He's speaking about patients 18 times. He's also wanting to thank those who are in the front line. He said the word thank 14 times over. He also starts emphasizing on the need to test. He's spoken of that 8 times. He's speaking of nurses 12 times over in that address, and fight 6 times. So that's the third word cloud that we stitched. This is word cloud number 4 from the 3rd of April. Here he's speaking of togetherness, oneness 9 times over. He spoke of lights and diyas 8 times over. He spoke of the country being 130 crores 7 times. He spoke of strength 6 times. He's speaking about friends 5 times as well. Trying to ensure you spend time with friends. He's emphasizing fight. He's emphasizing nation. He really has, Rajdeep, brought his best play out to the park. The level of compliance has a lot to do with the credibility the Prime Minister has with the Indian citizen. Because if this had been any other Prime Minister in any other time and he'd asked people to stay home, you know, in a country like India, where in many ways a lot like the Italians, people may or may not have complied. But given the kind of credibility and given the kind of messaging the Prime Minister has been able to do, by and large, people have complied with what the Prime Minister asked for. It's really a huge test and proof of his messaging abilities.
Absolutely. I think, as I've always said, Mr. Modi's biggest strength is his communication skills. And built around that communication skills is the credibility that he enjoys, particularly, I would say, in northern and western India. These are the two regions where I believe his popularity is highest. But significantly, even in South India, on this occasion, and Eastern India, so cutting across geographical boundaries, there's been a high degree of compliance. And I think we need to give credit both to the Prime Minister and to Chief Ministers this time. I think what we've seen in the coronavirus is the effective role that rooted Chief Ministers can play. Take a Bhupesh Baghel in Chhattisgarh. The kind of communication that he's also done at the grassroots level. Difficult state to ensure compliance, given that it's a sprawling state with remote pockets, but he's managed to do that also in remote Adivasi hamlets. So I think you've got to give credit to the Prime Minister for having taken the tough decision of a national lockdown. Not an easy decision to take in a country like India, particularly at a time of an economic slowdown, but I think also a measure of credit to the Chief Ministers. And I think what you're going to have to do over the next few weeks in lockdown 2.0 is enhance that center-state coordination. Because as you've been saying, I think there are districts that will need a measure of opening up. There are other districts that will need perhaps an even more severe lockdown. And achieving that balance cannot be done from Delhi. The Prime Minister can provide the broad guidelines, the template, but the actual execution has to be done by Chief Minister. So I think this is a partnership, and that's where I think cooperative federalism will be tested. I think one of the weaknesses in the past has been that while it's been talked about, it's not happened on the ground. Now the time has come to walk the talk, to ensure that genuine cooperative federalism takes place in lockdown 2.0. I think that will make the Prime Minister's messaging even more effective on the ground.
We have seen over the past few weeks is several chief ministers step up to the plate, prove that they are worthy administrators. It really has been a big opportunity because people are comparing state by states. Where has the strategy been cohesive? Where has it lacked cohesion? At this moment, we're building up to what the Prime Minister is saying, but I want to tell you that this afternoon we have a huge world exclusive lined up for you. The world's most famous living historian, Professor Yuval Noah Harari, a futurist philosopher, intellectual colossus, rock star history professor, and one of the deepest thinkers in the world. He'll be live on India Today in a new series we're calling the E-Conclave Corona series. Do tune in for that 2:30 p.m. Right now, of course, the entire focus on the Prime Minister's address. And I want to show you a map compiled by the India Today Data Intelligence Unit, which looks at the different zones of this country, district by district. Remember, this is not official government zoning, but we've done something pretty simple. We've looked at district-wise Corona-19 cases and we've turned them into 3 color categories. So the darker the shade of red you see on your screen right now, the greater the impact of coronavirus. So in Kerala, in Western Maharashtra, in parts of Rajasthan, the national capital region, lots of dark red. The green represents areas which are impacted but not ravaged by coronavirus. Some cases have been reported. So there have been some pockets in West Bengal, around Kolkata, some pockets in parts of Gujarat, some parts of Rajasthan, some parts of Haryana, but these are cases which are less in number. The great thing though is that there are about 300 districts in the country at this moment where there hasn't been a coronavirus case. And the best thing from my perspective is that this is in areas where our public health is the weakest. So Kutch, Saurashtra, a lot of Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Orissa, West Bengal, and I do hope to God it stays this way because this is where you are weakest, and that's where there's been the minimum impact of coronavirus just so far. So we've got...
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.